A Palestinian activist in New York has been arrested and now they're trying to deport him. Why? Well, because he's a threat to national security. And for some reason, our friends in the media insist constantly coming to the defense of absolutely terrible people. And I'm convinced 90% of the time they have absolutely no idea why they're actually coming to their defense. They're just doing it instinctively. Donald Trump says, this guy's bad. They say, oh, he must be good. And the defenders of free speech here have found a lot of things to defend when it comes to free speech lately. One of those things, of course, is the attacking of auto dealerships. Yes, that happened. Maybe we'll play that clip for you here in a little bit. But they're also defending, like I said before, a Palestinian activist who is engaged in a lot of anti-Semitism and the destruction of Western civilization. Abby Phillip of CNN kind of pretends she doesn't understand this and gets owned once again. Let's watch the clip.
He's a resident alien. He can be deported under U.S. law for if the Secretary of State has any reasonable ground to believe he would have a potentially serious adverse foreign policy consequence. And you mentioned the student organization. The student organization put out. Let me finish.
But before you move on, because I think that's a really important point, right? That's the statute that they're using.
Yeah.
Have you seen any evidence to suggest that there is actually a serious reason to believe that this student is going to be a threat to to national security?
Now, she says it sarcastically, like, oh, you don't have any evidence that there's an actual threat there. Who would suggest such a thing, that there'd be a threat here? That's just absolutely ridiculous. Look what you're saying. Look at what you're saying, man. You cannot say these things. And I think it's pretty clear that, yeah, there is an argument to be made where this individual is a threat to national security. And Scott Jennings is going to make that argument. But you'll notice the attempt here is always the same. The attempt is to say, well, there's really not that big of a deal. There's really nothing to see here. This isn't a big deal. And everything is like sort of an overblown situation. Even when it clearly is not an overblown situation, they want to make that into the case. And it's kind of embarrassing. But again, I don't think they get that they're being embarrassed. As Abby Phillip constantly sounds like she doesn't know what's happening on her own television show.
I've certainly watched the abomination that's gone on at Columbia and Barnard and other places. And I will just tell you, and I'll just tell you that I'm
not going to let you move on because this is
I'll tell you why it's a threat to national security if you let me answer you.
See, she won't even let him speak. She thinks she has some sort of gotcha here, but all of that is predicated on what? It's all predicated on her not understanding what is happening on her own television show. Just look at how dumb this looks to anyone with any common sense. And he's going to own her here, and we all know that. He knows it. Everyone knows it.
Scott.
You want me to answer you or not?
Okay.
His organization says we are dedicated fighting for the total eradication of Western civilization.
Okay.
He's not a citizen. He doesn't need to be here.
So, okay, is there any sign that he's a threat to national security? Is there any sign? Yeah, he wants to eradicate Western civilization. Now, surely they would just eat this and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't be defending this guy. But he is the celebrity of the day for the left because he is sideways with the Trump administration. So she's going to have to defend him. She's got to come out and defend this guy 100%. It's a requirement. She's going to do it like a dummy. This is what she wants to do on her own television show where she picks the topics.
You just described him having viewpoints that you disagree with. Again, is that enough to have someone lose their rights in this country?
He has viewpoints that, in my opinion, jeopardize the security of the United States.
But how?
He is obviously a radical who is here to foment.
No, he's not a radical at all.
Violence against the United States government.
He wants to destroy Western civilization.
You're saying eradicate Western civilization doesn't make you a radical?
Has he acted in any way that is violence against the United States?
Yes, he's organized protests that are anti-Semitic at Columbia, and they've been harassing Jewish students. What are we talking about here? And he's taken money from Islamic terrorists and those groups that support them. What are we?
Government, as you just said.
I think these protests and the violence they have fomented and the intimidation and fear against the Jewish kids on these campuses is absolutely an act of
But you're-
insurrection against the United
Okay.
States.
All
I don't
right.
think
Free
any-
American speech, Scott. That's enough.
Look,
Yes.
look, what they have engaged
The guy's not American, by the way.
in is a clear threat to the United States. And if you want the United States to be overrun by radicals the way Europe has,
What is
be
the-
my guest.
what
But I
is-
think the president needs to
but
stand up for
Scott-
the integrity of the
Scott,
United
what
States.
is the threat?
The threat of our
The
country
threat
being
is a
and our
com-
college
is-
campuses being overrun by radicals who are trying to run Jewish kids off of campuses
So-
and
They're not
anybody
trying to
else who
run Jewish
disagree.
kids
Yes,
off
they
of-
are.
Oh, yes,
In
they are.
UCLA.
No,
In
they're not.
UCLA.
First of all,
they wouldn't even
they
let
were-
them go to
first
class.
of all,
That's absolutely what they said their goal was. That was their suggestion. They're not letting people enter campus or classrooms or any of that stuff. Why are we pretending this is, again, why would the left defend this guy? Why? What's the purpose?
they were
Columbia is an abomination.
First of all, there were violent counter protests at
Oh
UCLA
my God.
that were done by Jewish organizations.
No, both sides.
Oh
This
my God.
anti-Semitism
I'm-
is a
well,
scourge on
oh
this
my
country. Do
gosh.
not
It
both
absolutely
sides.
is.
Is that it is not clear that this particular student has engaged in the specific actions that he was talking about. And you've shown me no evidence of that either.
Is Scott Jennings like trying the case here? I mean, is there some sort of thing? And by the way, they've made up this metric that doesn't exist. Like, you have to show me. You have to show. Why? Why exactly do you have to be shown? What exactly is the reason that you're supposed to be shown this? This is made up. You don't have to show this at all. He's not an American citizen. He's in this country on a green card. It can be revoked at the whim of the State Department. Period. You've made up a metric and then you're demanding Scott Jennings meet it. And when he does, you say, well, that doesn't count. Pathetic.
Okay, well, guess what? He is not a citizen. If he were a citizen, I might feel differently. He's a guest in this country.
Okay.
It's my view,
So in other
and
words,
it's the
you
Trump
don't have
administration.
proof, but it doesn't matter.
No, I didn't walk in here with my gumshoe investigative case, Abby. But here's what I do think: this guy's
well,
running
you're
an
saying that-
organization at Columbia
Well,
that
you're
has
saying that
ruined
you're
two
saying that
solid
someone
years of
should
people's
be
lives.
Deported
Yes.
based on allegations that you have not substantiated.
I think he should be deported based on what
Okay.
the Trump administration
You
has
think he
already
should be
identified. He is a threat to
deported
the national
based
security.
on-
of the United States.
based
Here's
on
the
his affiliation.
statute you quoted, an obscure statute, old statute that's being used, is about being against.
And now it's an old statute. By the way, so now we've established that it is, in fact, a statute, but it's an old statute. So now it doesn't matter because of the age. And again, Anna Navarro, former Republican, right? Like, that's her whole shtick here. She's taking a position that anti-Semites and monsters should stay in the country because Donald Trump wants them out. And that's it. That's it. That is the sole argument here for Anna Navarro. That's it.
against U.S. foreign policy, right? So, for example, when I was part of protests in Miami, when the Clinton administration and Janet Reno returned Elian Gonzalez to Cuba, is that
Were you trying to eradicate Western civilization?
No,
It's such an easy thing to take apart. What an idiot. You were not protesting and saying take down Western civilization. You were actually advocating for Western civilization and Elian Gonzalez being allowed to stay here. You moron. But again, there is no intellectual honesty here. It is solely, I disagree with your point, so I'm going to argue anything I possibly can, even though it doesn't make any sense.
I was trying to stop the U.S. government, and I was protesting against what the U.S. government had done. I was
Were you
protesting.
occupying buildings?
I was protesting.
Were you fomenting
I was
violence?
doing what that.
Were you inciting others to
I was
engage in
doing
violence?
what that statute
Were you
said.
chasing
I was
people
against
around?
U.S. foreign policy.
Were you
at the time.
intimidating people?
Okay,
We
Scott.
were shutting
No.
down streets for
My
them.
view is that we're
By the way, and you heard Abby Phillip try to come in here and stop it. She can't control her own show. She had no idea what to do. Because Scott Jennings is just taking on people piece by piece and picking them apart. How pathetic for these people. These people are paid for this, by the way.
in a fight for the future of Western civilization. This guy's on the wrong side of it, and he don't need to be here.
That's it. It's a great point. He nailed it. That's exactly correct. It is exactly correct. He is 100% correct. He is 100% right. And almost everybody knows it. But here they are attempting to pretend. And by the way, keep this in mind. I cannot stress this enough. These people don't actually believe this stuff. They're just doing theater. That is all they're doing. This is theater for them. They are attempting to make it appear that they believe this stuff, but everybody knows they do not believe this stuff. And it's unfortunate for them because they have every ability in the world to at least attempt to make an argument here and not have Scott Jennings just beat them to death over and over and over again on cable news. But here they are doing it and just finding themselves in a scenario where they don't know what to do.
Ironic that the president.
It is sad. It is. It's really sad. I got another clip for you here that I want to share with you. Let's bring this over here and pot this one up because I don't know why that's cutting the clip off there. But listen, these individuals, again, you have to ask yourself, do they actually believe the stuff they're saying? That's the question you have to ask yourself. And a lot of times, I think the answer to that would be no. As they sit here and try to make these arguments, it I think becomes pretty damn clear to almost everyone that if they were going to be honest with themselves and they were going to tell the truth, they would say, well, here's what's actually happening. This is a bad situation. This guy probably shouldn't be here. But for some reason, and this is what they're doing, we believe that the individuals who are here should be allowed to stay here as long as they possibly want to and do whatever they want just because we hate Donald Trump. If they would just tell the truth and make that argument, then yeah, fine, go right ahead and do that. But they have no interest in telling the truth. They have no interest in telling the truth. They have no interest in being honest. They have no interest in anything other than fighting about whether or not Donald Trump is the right guy to be president of the United States. So everything that he does is now just basically terrible and awful. And anyone that opposes him or Western civilization, in this particular case, well, then they must be the good guys. And, you know, it's pretty obvious that the good guys are not the individuals who are out on college campuses causing chaos. Everybody knows they're not the good guys. But our friends in the media pretend that they are. And then it puts them into positions where they're criticizing things like Teslas and things of that nature and being nasty about it. Why? Well, because they don't like Donald Trump and they don't like Elon Musk.
Yeah, Julie, what's your reaction to this Tesla stunt? Is it ironic that the president is now touting electric vehicles?
I mean, first of all, it's not legal. Let's start with that. Second, I mean, you can't do this on the property of the White House. It's federal property. Second, I mean, really, the president is basically a car salesman now. It's just astounding with everything that's going on. I mean, literally, with everything that's going on in the world, he's taking time out of his day to array 4 or 5 Teslas on the White House lawn and basically act like a showroom salesman. By the way, I don't know who he thinks is buying Teslas, but I can guarantee you that they're out of reach, many of them, for the average Trump voter. So
an insult about the average Trump voter, and that's what they're going to do here. And they're going to make this case that the average Trump voter can't afford to buy these things. That's the argument they're going to make. And it's just, again, they're electric vehicles. I remember when the left liked electric vehicles, but now they hate them.
I'm not sure who in the MAGA universe he's urging to buy Teslas, because Teslas consistently, in previous iterations, were bought by wealthier, more environmentally conscious people. And so, you know, if he's trying to now get MAGA to go buy Teslas, I think that's not going to be very successful. But it does underscore that the protest against Tesla and the fact that the market is driving Tesla down is really having an effect on Elon Musk in a truly tangible way. Otherwise, the president of the United States would not be coming out and taking time out of his day to effectively sell Teslas.
By the way, it's important to point out that, you know, Joe Biden did the exact same thing. He was driving electric vehicles on the White House lawn as well. So we'll ignore that part of the whole thing. And yes, you pointed out your own hypocrisy that the left used to really, really, really love Tesla and environmental vehicles. But now Donald Trump likes them, so they hate them.
Tesla. Well, and this is, Mark, one brand, one type of car that affects one business owner, Elon Musk, but other U.S. automakers are saying, what the heck? I mean, here's a quote from another automaker here in the U.S. telling NBC News, Tesla has benefited more from taxpayer money than any other car maker by far. Now the White House is marketing Tesla vehicles. What's next?
Well, it already happened. Joe Biden drove an F-150 on the White House lawn. Joe Biden drove a Jeep from Stellantis. They did that as well on the White House lawn. Why was that? Where was the media screaming about him being an auto broker there?
I think that's exactly the right irony. The reality is that for many of us, we've opposed not Teslas, we've opposed taxpayer subsidies of electric vehicles, believing the marketplace should be a place people can choose what they want, but it shouldn't be subsidized by average Americans to pay for what wealthy Americans can afford. And so that's been our position. Now,
okay, and they were not pushing subsidies in that particular instance. So again, this is an instinctive anti-Trump position. That's all it is. It's all it's predicated on is being anti-Trump and making the argument that Donald Trump is bad, therefore what he supports is bad, and I'm going to oppose it. So these people continue to be out of their mind. They continue to make arguments that they don't really believe, and that's why they continue to get crushed everywhere they go, or they have to go on television and insult Trump voters saying they can't afford to buy Teslas, which is interesting because that elitist idea that doesn't really seem to be working for them, but they're going to continue pushing it. So now they hate electric vehicles because Donald Trump is supporting them. And yeah, he's right, by the way. I mean, the one thing they are correct about is on the White House lawn. Yeah, this thing, it's kind of ridiculous. I'll agree with that. I'm not going to support it just because Donald Trump is doing it. I have plenty to disagree with on Donald Trump. But this stuff, this isn't real. These people are just opposing it because Donald Trump is doing it. And that is not the path to victory. And I think they know that.